On the hardest curves of life, when everyone else was slamming on the brakes, you stepped on the gas. While those who barricaded your way are now lost in the wreckage, you reached the finish without a single scratch. Where everyone else was skidding, you moved forward with full control, without shaking your steering wheel. Because your existence already knows no boundaries. Where others crashed, you proved your strength. This crash course was not a fork in the road, but a real transformation point. You showed everyone with your courage, your will, your indestructible spirit. On this track, in this fight, you are the winner. Now move on. Write 888 in the comments. Now don't just be a spectator, be part of the story. With your support, we will become a huge family of 5,000 people. Subscribe now, turn on notifications and join us. Because in this story, the obstacles are just props. You were and always will be the main character. Think of your journey like a single seed dropped into the dirt by an unseen hand. At first, the world sees only mud and shadows, maybe even trampling feet and cold rain. Yet, deep beneath, that seed is quietly splitting open, preparing to punch through concrete with roots that won't take no for an answer. Trouble tries to bury you, but the pressure only makes your foundation stronger. Before long, what looked like defeat breaks into daylight as a green shoot, destined to become a shelter for birds and a landmark for travelers. Right now, you are living in the middle of a field scattered with the wreckage of plans meant to crush you. Let's call it what it is, a spiritual crime scene. The fingerprints of those who plotted against you are everywhere, though some still pretend their hands are clean. Every whisper, every accusation, every sly trap, every closed door. They thought you wouldn't see the connections, but God has illuminated every clue. The line between what was meant for harm and what turned to good has never been clearer. Even those who crafted the scheme are left scratching their heads, unable to recognize the blueprints they once drew up in secret. See, beloved, you were never meant to fall in that pit. You were meant to show the world what it looks like when God uses the enemy's own plans as the springboard for your next level. They rolled the stone across your door, but heaven sent an earthquake to roll it away. That's the pattern of your life. Every setback, every detour, every no became another stepping stone to your purpose. And now the dust is settling, and the only one left standing is you. They set dominoes tumbling behind closed doors, not realizing they were triggering a chain reaction that would circle back to their own doorstep. That's the holy boomerang effect. What was meant to entangle you is now binding the architects themselves. The pit they dug for you has become the evidence of their own undoing. And you, child of the Most High, are walking through the debris field with clean hands and an unshakable testimony. It's not just poetic justice, it's prophetic fulfillment. Let me tell you, nothing escapes God's attention. Every thread of betrayal, every crooked plan, every disguised intention is laid bare in the light of truth. The traps that were set for your feet are now tripping up those who placed them. The lies spun in back rooms are now unraveling in the open, exposed for the empty threats they always were. What they meant for your downfall has become the soundtrack to your victory march. It's like trying to sink a cork in the ocean. You can push it down, you can hold it under, but eventually it pops right back up, no matter how deep the waters or how strong the hand pressing against it. That's what's happening for you. The very circumstances designed to bury you are causing you to rise higher than anyone expected. Your faith has become unsinkable. Don't be surprised by the chaos in your enemy's camp. The confusion they unleashed into your life is now sweeping through theirs like a whirlwind. They're running around, trying to gather the scattered pieces of their shattered strategy, but it's too late. The divine reversal is in motion. God has turned the chessboard upside down. What was a checkmate for you is now a checkmate for them. Understand, this isn't just personal vindication. It's a demonstration to everyone watching that the righteous are never forsaken. People are whispering about how you survived, about the resilience they can't explain. Some said you were done for, that you'd never recover from what was thrown your way. Yet here you are, standing taller than before, with scars that shine like badges of honor, and a spirit that refuses to quit. Behind every miracle is a message. Subscribe and discover them with us. Your story is becoming a guidebook for those who feel trapped right now. Every person who thought the door was locked forever is about to see it swing wide open in your life. Every outsider who's felt exiled by gossip and shame is going to see you walk back in with your head held high, welcomed by the same mouths that once cursed you. That's how the tables turn when God is writing the script. Don't waste a minute looking back in anger. What was sent to break you has only proved the power of the God who stands behind you. The setbacks that tried to define you are becoming the setup for your new identity. Your enemies are having to face the music, and the melody is grace, because you won't even need to lift a finger in retaliation. God is handling your PR. Let the world call it coincidence, but you know the truth, it's divine orchestration. The walls that hemmed you in have turned into a stage for your unveiling. The roadblocks became altars of thanksgiving. Every single almost, and not yet, has turned into a right now, and yes, from heaven. See, you're not just the survivor of sabotage. You are the banner carrier for a new generation of overcomers. People will look at your journey and realize that trouble doesn't have the final word, God does. The spotlight isn't on your wounds, but on the healing that followed. The testimony isn't about what they tried to do, but about what God accomplished through you in spite of it all. If you're still in the aftermath, sifting through the debris, don't despair. The miracle is already in motion. What was meant to be your burial site is transforming into the cornerstone for something new. In the same way the seed breaks through hard earth, your victory is breaking through every circumstance. Don't just collect the pieces of your past, build something new with them. Let every stone of rejection become the foundation for a house of glory. Let every closed door become a portal to unexpected blessing. Let the losses fuel a passion for others to rise as you have risen. There's a reason you outlasted the plot against you. It wasn't luck, it was destiny. The pressure that tried to fracture you only made you more unbreakable. The voices that tried to drown you out have become the proof that you have something to say that matters. And now, as the sun rises over this battlefield, it's clear to all who's really in charge. So lift your eyes from the debris. Look up and see the wide horizon stretching out before you. You've crossed through the storm, shaken off the dust, and discovered that the only thing left standing is the promise placed in you from the beginning. Go ahead, take the next step with courage, knowing every trouble that tried to stop you has only confirmed you were chosen for more. Let that be your song today. Out of the ashes, something beautiful is growing. Out of every trap, a testimony is taking shape. And out of the aftermath, a chosen one is rising, stronger and brighter than ever before. Imagine a runaway freight train rumbling through the night, steam hissing, sparks flying, the whistle wailing clear across empty plains. Folks at the depot once bragged they held the throttle, certain they could stop or start that iron giant whenever they pleased. But somewhere between ego and overconfidence, they missed a critical switch. Now the locomotive barrels down a grade of its own making, no engineer at the controls, only fear-struck passengers clutching velvet seats while momentum decides the destination. That, beloved, is the very picture of what pride-drunk plotters brought upon themselves when they worked to orchestrate your demise. They drafted scene after scene in secret boardrooms and back-alley texting threads, congratulating each other on clever twists meant to derail your purpose. Yet the ink in their pens dried to dust the moment a darker scriptwriter seized the manuscript. They thought heaven's narrative could be ghost-written by gossip and back-office sabotage, but an unseen hand flipped the page, and suddenly they were strapped to a storyline moving faster than their schemes could keep up. They boasted, "We hold the steering wheel," never realizing the steering column detached from the axle miles ago. Pride fastened like a seatbelt they eagerly clicked, unaware that same belt would lock them tight when the curve appeared. Doors marked "emergency exit" slammed and welded shut by consequences they didn't factor in. Text chains that once drip-fed malicious rumors now ping relentlessly with SOS signals. How did this happen? Why can't we slow it down? Their own words loop back like boomerangs, declarations that your fall was certain now boomerang into their timelines as headlines announcing their stumbling. They stare, mouths dry, while the engine they stoked with envy tears through barricades they never anticipated. That runaway truth exposes every false mile marker they hammered into the ground, each sign pointing you toward shame now spinning loose, revealing the hidden hand that wrote the detour. Hear me, friend. The crash they engineered for you has swerved onto their ledger. They misjudged the weight of destiny on your life, underestimating the inertia of divine favor. When they pumped up their tires with self-promotion, each boastful breath inflated an internal balloon that finally burst, echoing across the valley of their own ambitions. The thunderclap wasn't your collapse. It was the hollow pop of pride imploding from the inside. While they scramble to gather shattered shards of reputation, you stand unscathed on solid ground, ground laid long before their committee convened, ground poured from bedrock promises that can't fracture under tabloid tremors. Notice how the plot twists. The same passengers who once jeered from plush cabins now beg for directions to safety. They discover too late the conductor's cap never sat on their heads. It rested on higher authority sculpting good even from malicious drafts. That authority, call it Providence, call it the Almighty, call it the author and finisher. Installed brakes unreachable by manipulative hands, brakes designed to kick in precisely when the speed of deceit outsprints its drivers. Those brakes screeched, and momentum hurled prideful schemers into the very walls they built to pen you in. The echo they hear is their own accusation reverberating, the verdict self-inflicted. Take heart. While their phantom locomotive slows in smoking ruin, you walk a track rerouted by grace. You own the timetable now, penned not with vengeful ink but with blueprint precision. Their collision becomes the cautionary tale fueling your testimony. Corporate policies shift because your integrity stands as fresh rail steel in a rusted yard. Family rifts mend because your words carry the timbre of someone forged in fire yet dripping with unfiltered compassion. Ministries once directionless catch a fresh wind because your story hums like a lighthouse generator, spinning beams across dark harbor water. Understand this, you haven't been preserved just to spike a victory flag into someone else's wreckage. You've been kept to plant vineyards where envy salted the ground. The credibility that emerges from surviving their smear will be the very microphone heaven hands you. And when you speak, whether in boardroom, living room, or sanctuary, walls will shake, but not because you raise your voice. They'll quake because truth delivered through humility resounds deeper than any insult slung in jealousy's tone. That resonance compels policy to reorient around justice, compels households to realign around forgiveness, compels vision to crystallize where fog once hung thick. So step forward with the calm confidence of a station master who knows the true schedule. Hand out revised tickets stamped with redemption, not retribution. Where they wrote "end of line" across your chapter, pencil in "breaking dawn." For every plan they pushed to sideline you, heaven banked a counterforce to uplift unseen. Now their runaway plot is yesterday's headline, and your forward march is today's front page. Pride tied their wrists, purpose frees your hands. And the story rolling out from here? It's authored by the one who never loses the pen. Sometimes, being chosen feels a lot like a seed trying to break through a slab of concrete. From the outside, folks just see that hard, gray surface. They don't see what's happening underneath, the quiet struggle, the slow build of pressure, the way that tiny bit of green is fighting with everything it has just to catch a glimpse of the sunlight. And while the world might look at you and see only what's on the surface, God knows about the power growing underneath. He sees the roots. He knows the dream he planted. No storm, no whisper, no human opinion can keep that seed from its appointed breakthrough, not if the Lord has set it apart. Schemes always start with whispers. They never walk in wearing bright colors, ringing bells, or announcing themselves with fanfare. No, they slip in quietly, almost politely, as if they were just passing through. You know, nobody wakes up one morning and suddenly decides to turn on you. It's always a process, a slow, careful planting of ideas. Maybe it starts with a little look, a sigh, a comment passed at the dinner table. Did you see how well she's doing lately? Must be nice, huh? It's the sound of comparison, floating through the room like a draft no one can quite locate. And the truth is, seeds of comparison always grow fastest in the soil of insecurity. That's just the way human nature is. Insecurity is soft ground for bad seeds. Even the best of us, the most loving of us, have little pockets of doubt tucked away, old wounds, old rejections, times we weren't chosen or celebrated. When someone else's light starts shining, when their breakthrough becomes obvious, it's those old bruises that get poked. Suddenly, what used to feel like a small ache starts to ache a whole lot more. Every participant, whether a family member or a friend, had a pocket of envy waiting to be tapped. Nobody wants to admit it. We like to think we're above all that. But deep down, everyone's got something. A feeling that they deserved more, that they were overlooked, that God forgot their address while he was handing out blessings. And the enemy, he doesn't need to invent new weaknesses. He just amplifies the cracks that already exist. He doesn't come to destroy, he comes to divide. He doesn't have to build new strongholds. He just waters the roots of old hurts until they split wide open. Those old childhood comparisons, those moments when love felt like a contest, those wounds we thought we'd healed, they're the softest targets. It only takes a whisper, a nudge, a memory brought up in the wrong spirit. Suddenly, folks who used to cheer you on start to look at you sideways. It's one thing to deal with a stranger's judgment. That's the easy part. But what do you do when the schemes come from your own table, your own house, your own circle? The tempter knows your address. He knows your circle. He knows who gets to your heart. He sends doubt not through the words of an enemy, but through the mouths of the ones you love. Because the truth is, it's easy to ignore stones thrown by strangers. But when the stones come from people you've let inside your gates, from the hands of family, friends, maybe even church folk, it hurts different. It lands deeper. That's where chosen ones often get caught off guard. You expect opposition from the outside, but when it comes from your own, you start to question your worth, your memory, your calling. But let me remind you, if you're experiencing this, it's because you matter. You're a threat. The enemy only targets what he's afraid of. He wouldn't stir up all that trouble if your light wasn't about to break through. Like that seed under the concrete, the pressure is a sign of the promise. You see, God has a way of using what the enemy meant for harm and turning it for your good. Sometimes, it's the very pressure that others try to use against you that becomes the proof of your purpose. The greater the opposition, the greater the call. If nobody's trying to tear you down, it might be because you're not building anything that scares the darkness. Pressure isn't proof of punishment, it's a sign of promise. Just like a seed, you're not breaking apart, you're breaking through. Every crack, every betrayal, every false accusation, it's all letting in more light, more water, more nutrients to your soul. What was supposed to bury you is only making you stronger. Subscribe now, your next favorite story might be 1,000 years old. And let's talk plain. Comparison is a thief. It steals joy, it steals peace, and it always sets folks against each other. Some of the most beautiful friendships have been destroyed, not by big betrayals, but by quiet comparison. Someone gets a blessing and instead of rejoicing, folks start counting what's missing in their own lives. But the chosen one, the seed that God has set apart, can't afford to live in comparison. Your journey is your own. Your testimony, your timing, your breakthrough, it was made just for you. God's not running out of miracles. Your blessing isn't going to take from someone else, and theirs can't take from you. The field is wide, the sun shines on all, and your job is to keep growing, keep reaching, keep believing. So what do you do when you feel those whispers swirling around you? When comparison starts to poison the soil? When folks who used to clap for you start to compete with you, question you, criticize you? The answer is simple, but not always easy. You love anyway. You keep your heart clean. You refuse to stoop to the level of jealousy and offense. Instead, you pray for the ones who hurt you. You sow seeds of kindness even when you don't feel like it. Remember, forgiveness isn't about letting someone else off the hook. It's about keeping your spirit free. It's about making sure that the schemes of others never have a place to take root in your heart. You were called to rise, not to retaliate. The seed that spends its whole life resenting the rocks will never make it to the sunlight. There's a reason the battle has been so fierce. It's because you're carrying something sacred. The enemy wouldn't bother if you weren't so close to breaking through. Don't let the schemes of others set your temperature. Don't let the comparison and criticism of the insecure shape your self-image. God's the one who called you, set you apart, and equipped you for such a time as this. Your job is not to convince anyone. Your job is not to make them see your value. Your job is to keep growing, keep trusting, keep letting God fight your battles. The whispers may start the story, but they never get to write the ending. The one who planted you will make sure you reach the light. No plot, no scheme, no rumor can keep a chosen seed from breaking through, not when heaven's already spoken the blessing. Some of you are carrying the weight of generations, patterns of jealousy, cycles of competition, old family hurts that never seem to heal. But I'm here to tell you, it stops with you. You're the one who changes the story. You're the one who rises above the old narrative. Where others fell to comparison, you choose gratitude. Where others watered the roots of old pain, you let the living water wash them clean. You're not just breaking through for yourself, you're making a path for the ones who come after you. Your children, your nieces and nephews, your spiritual sons and daughters, they'll look at your life and say, if God did it for them, He can do it for me. Your breakthrough is never just about you. It's about the legacy you're building. The shadows may crowd around for a season, but they can't stop the sunrise. Keep walking in the light. Keep telling the truth even when it's costly. Keep blessing those who curse you, because you know your blessing isn't in their hands anyway. The higher you rise, the lonelier it can feel, but you're never truly alone. God walks with you on the mountaintop and in the valley. He's the gardener who never stops tending your life. And let me remind you, the greatest flowers grow in the harshest soil. Pressure creates diamonds. Heat makes gold pure. You were made for this. Your story isn't over, it's just getting good. There will come a day when the same folks who whispered about you, who doubted you, who tried to shut you out, will have to admit they were wrong. Your fruit will speak for itself. The seed that survives the most pressure bears the sweetest harvest. And when that day comes, you won't have to say a word in your own defense. Your breakthrough will do the talking. So don't let the whispers worry you. Don't let the comparisons steal your song. You were planted for such a time as this. The concrete can't keep you down, not when the Creator Himself is calling you up. Imagine for a moment you're like an eagle, high up on the mountain's edge. You didn't get those wings just to flap around in safe, low places. God shaped you to rise above the clouds, to ride the winds others are afraid of. Down below, storms may rage, wind howling, thunder rolling, folks huddling together and whispering their worries. But an eagle knows, the higher you rise, the less the storm can touch you. The winds meant to break you apart are the same winds that lift you up to where the sunlight always shines. That's the destiny God has set over your life. Stay faithful, stay humble, stay expectant. The best is still ahead. Let the world talk. Let the rumors fly. You just keep rising. Because what God has planted in you, no person, no past, no scheme can stop. Now, maybe you grew up in a place where people only believed in what they could see. Maybe every time you tried to shine, there was somebody nearby telling you not to get ahead of yourself. They saw your dreams as a threat, your gifts as something odd, maybe even your kindness as a weakness. But I want you to know, God saw every single time you chose hope over bitterness, every moment you pressed forward when giving up would have been easier. Sometimes life will press you down so hard, you wonder if you'll ever stand tall again. That's when you discover what's inside you, the roots God put down in your spirit. The world can throw all it has at you, but it can't uproot what heaven has planted. You see, faithfulness isn't about being noticed, it's about being anchored. It's easy to be faithful when you're in the spotlight, when the applause is ringing. But real faithfulness grows in the secret places, when you're working, waiting, praying, and nobody seems to care. Maybe you're the one who always does right, even when nobody is watching. Maybe you're the person others lean on, but no one ever seems to check on you. Listen, God sees you. The seeds you've sown in tears will be reaped in joy. The best is still ahead. That's not just a hopeful saying. That's a promise rooted in the character of God. He didn't bring you this far to leave you stranded. He didn't light a fire in your spirit for it to burn out in disappointment. Let the world talk. Let the rumors fly. The higher you climb, the more folks will whisper. Some people only clap for you as long as you're sitting in the same row as them. The minute you step forward, the minute you step into something new, don't be surprised if you hear voices behind your back. They'll question your motives, doubt your calling, minimize your progress. That's human nature. But what they can't see is what God is doing inside you, beneath the surface, in the soil of your soul. You're not here by accident. Every detour, Every heartbreak, every delay has been part of the preparation. The world may talk, but God writes the story. You just keep rising. Like that eagle on the wind, don't come down to argue with crows. Don't let other people's small vision put a lid on your destiny. What God has planted in you is not up for a vote. Your value doesn't decrease because someone else can't see it. The opinions of others don't change God's plans for your life. Sometimes, your rising will make people uncomfortable. That's okay. They're not your audience, God is. When God says rise, you rise, even if it means rising alone for a season. Because what God has planted in you, no person, no past, no scheme can stop. Hear me on this. The hands that try to hold you down are never stronger than the hand that lifts you up. The past may try to call your name, but God calls you by your purpose. Schemes may form, plans may be plotted, but heaven's blessing cannot be blocked. Sometimes the very thing meant to break you is what pushes you higher. The gossip, the lies, the betrayals, they're like fertilizer for your roots. They drive you deeper into faith, closer to God, stronger in resolve. The enemy thought he could destroy you, but all he did was prepare you for greater. Stay faithful, even when nothing seems to be happening. Stay faithful, even when the results are invisible. God rewards faithfulness, not flashiness, not shortcuts, not pretending. Your consistency in prayer, your willingness to forgive, your habit of blessing others even when you feel empty, these are the things God honors. Faithfulness is about trusting God's timing. The breakthrough you're waiting for may not come in your timing, but it will come. Every delay is a setup for greater destiny. What's ahead is far better than anything behind. Stay humble, no matter how high God lifts you. The higher an eagle goes, the less it flaps, and the more it soars. Some folks forget where they came from as soon as they taste success. But you, chosen one, you know that every open door was God's doing. Every miracle, every healing, every provision, it was never just your effort. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less and trusting God more. Humble people are teachable. They grow, they adapt, they attract favor. God gives grace to the humble, and His grace is the open sky where you learn to fly. Stay expectant. Don't let disappointments shrink your vision. Don't let one closed door make you forget about the windows God can open. Expectation is faith in action. It's waking up every day saying, "Lord, I don't know how, but I believe you can turn this around." It's refusing to let your present define your future. When you live with expectation, you prepare your life for the blessing. You make room in your heart, your calendar, your attitude. You speak like someone who knows the best is yet to come. Not everyone will understand your journey, and that's all right. They didn't hear what God told you in the night hours. They didn't see the battles you fought in silence, the tears you cried in secret, the faith you held on to when hope was thin. Temptation was never accidental. Every lure, whether a promise of power, easy money, or the heady rush of revenge, was chosen to fit each accomplice perfectly. Each one signed a spiritual agreement with their own signature, unaware of what the fine print really meant for their lives. What felt like an opportunity for payback was a ticket to a debt they'd never truly repay. These weren't warriors, they were pawns in a bigger experiment. Each person who played a role in your opposition ended up demonstrating what happens to those who try to sabotage divine protection. The orchestrator of evil gathered his data, not on your downfall, but on his own followers' susceptibility to self-destruction. No enemy who came against you ever truly walked away unchanged or unharmed. Every attack on your name, every plot hatched in secret, became like a boomerang set loose in a hurricane. Their plans ricocheted back, sometimes instantly, sometimes in ways that took months or years to unfold, but always landing exactly where the harm originated. The doors slammed in your face became gateways in unexpected places, while the blessings meant for you sidestepped obstacles and arrived right on schedule. Misfortune has a way of keeping score. For those who stepped into the ring against you, relationships fractured, doors shut, and money vanished without warning. The deeper the partnership with darkness, the steeper the price. Every missed opportunity, every argument at home, every crisis of health was an uncollected debt, each payment made in the currency of self-betrayal. Negativity is contagious, especially for those who nurse it. As the fallout spread, the circle of harm widened. Children, spouses, even bystanders found themselves swept into the spiral. The further from the light a person drifts, the more shadow seeps into the cracks of daily life. Entire households suffered not because of your presence, but because of what their loved ones harbored in secret. Long before the full attack materialized, your intuition started flashing warning signals. Sometimes it came as unease, sometimes as a sudden urge to step away. You may not have understood every feeling at the time, but your spirit was sounding an internal alarm, pushing you out of harm's way. What looked like self-protection was really heaven moving you to safer ground. The power of foresight isn't just a gift, it's a shield. You sensed changes in the energy around you before words were ever spoken. Where others might stumble into confrontation, you kept moving forward, guided by insight that kept you steps ahead. You didn't need to engage with every challenger because discernment led you to sidestep most traps altogether. Desperation only made your adversaries double down. Instead of retreating, they invited more people into their cause, thinking that numbers would tip the balance. But with every new recruit, the collapse accelerated. Spiritual debt is compounded by participation, and by the end, the weight was too much for any of them to bear. Stories of what happened began to ripple outward. People who once plotted or watched from the sidelines saw the price paid by those who opposed you. Suddenly, being part of the next attack lost its appeal, and future opponents melted away before battle could even begin. Your life became a living testimony, a lighthouse warning others away from the rocks. Bible tales, plot twists, life lessons. Subscribe if you're ready for more. There came a point where you stopped fighting for validation. Something inside you clicked, and you realized that true authority doesn't need constant defense. The armor you wore was forged by experience, and now your presence speaks for itself. Walking in your true calling, you moved from defense to destiny, no longer defined by the opinions of others. Every ending clears the ground for a new beginning. The shattered pieces left behind aren't reminders of trauma, they're monuments to the protection that surrounded you all along. You move forward now, not as a survivor, but as a trailblazer, carrying the lessons and leaving the wreckage where it belongs, as evidence that no weapon formed against you could ever prosper.